Okay, now I want to look at a few problems where we're needing to convert back and forth between degrees and radians. In class, we talked about there are now two ways that we can express the measurement of an angle. We can say an angle theta is 124 degrees, or, and this would be like a different angle, I could say another angle would be 5 pi over 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and write radians here, although normally and in your book you'll just see it written as 5 pi over 2. And if there's no units there, then you know that number is in radians. And just to review quickly, if you think about starting in our standard position, and if we start moving our terminal side all the way around, and I decide to go all the way around the circle, I will have moved 360 degrees, or I could say the angle would have been 2 pi radians. So if you have an angle that goes all the way around the circle, it's either 360 degrees or it could say 2 pi radians. And in the same way, if you decide to go, an angle is like halfway around the circle, we say that is 180 degrees or pi radians. All right? So that just gives you a feel, helps you to remember how these things are sort of related. Now, based upon this information, it's pretty easy to convert back and forth between degrees and radians. So let's just do a few quick problems. Say I have a 120 degree angle, and we're asked to convert it to radians. So how many radians equals 120 degrees? Basically, we just have to do a conversion. 120 degrees, I'm going to use a unit fraction. Same rules apply. I'm starting with degrees, so degrees go on the bottom. I'm trying to get to radians, so I'll put radians in the top. And now I think to myself, what's the relationship between radians and degrees? And here's the most common one that people like to use. Pi radians is the same as 180 degrees. And we actually just showed that over here with this diagram. If your angle is halfway around the circle, or a straight angle, that's 180 degrees, or it's also pi radians. So that's what we use as our conversion. Now, normally, we like to leave the pi in the answer as a radian. So basically, I'm just going to take 120 divided by 180, and I realize that's 2/3. So a lot of times, you write your answer as 2 pi over 3. This is what they call an exact answer. If we actually went to grab your calculator and try to multiply this out, then that would be inexact, because when you put in the number for pi, we have to round off the pi. So a lot of times you can just leave the answer like this, 2 pi over 3 radians. Let's do another quick example, since that was pretty easy, and actually none of these are hard. You could even take like a negative angle, negative 135 degrees, and if we want to convert it into radians, here's our unit fraction. We start with degrees, degrees on the bottom. We want to get to radians, so it's on the top. The same thing, there are pi radians and 180 degrees. Simply do the math. We're not going to multiply out the pi. And if you look at this, if you reduce things, you eventually get to the point where it's negative 3/4, and of course there's the pi. All right, not too hard. Now let's go the other way. Let's take an angle in radians and convert it to degrees. So here's 5 pi over 6 radians. I can write radians here. Pretty soon I'm not going to write radians anymore, but since we're just not learning this stuff, I'll do that for a while. 5 pi over 6 radians equals how many degrees? Well, we're going to simply, this is a problem of unit conversion. So if I have 5 pi over 6 radians, to convert it, I'm going to look at this fraction. I start with radians, the radians go on the bottom. I'm trying to get to degrees, so degrees go on the top. And I say, you know what, there are 180 degrees in pi radians. So in this case, the pi's cancel out. So you really have 5 over 6 times 180. And if you do that on your calculator, you end up with 150 degrees. So a 5 pi over 6 radian angle is the same as 150 degrees. And we'll just do one more last one. How about if I have an angle 11 pi over 4, and I want to convert it to degrees? I start with radians, radians on the bottom, degrees on the top. I know there are 180 degrees in pi radians. The pi's once again cancel out. I have 11 over 4 times 180. As it turns out, that equals 495 degrees. All right, so hopefully you can see going back and forth between degrees and radians is not very difficult.